Welcome back to Straight Facts, joined by Saba. It's Wednesday. How are you, mate? You well? You good?
Very well, very well. Yes, we get some football back this week. So, yeah, very, very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, yes, from a Spurs point of view, we'll be delving into that, plus multiple other stories. Viewers, hit the like button for us. Please get that done. Make sure you are subscribing to the channel as well. Very, very important to us that you get that done. Starting off today, though, breaking news in the last 20 to 25 minutes, just before we went live, is why we were also a little bit late on reading the story. Manchester United have officially entered talks with Karim Benzema's camp and with El Ittihad, I think that's how you pronounce their name, his team in Saudi, about the potential loan move of Benzema to Manchester United, according to reports coming from Felix Diaz, who is reportedly a credible journalist when it comes to all things connected to Spain. And it kind of is because of the time that Benzema spent out there. He knows the parties. Man United have officially entered talks with the Saudi club, with the player's representation. What's your thoughts on this? First of all, is this the right type of deal for Man United to try and get done this January, especially now that it's been announced that there's going to be a 10 to 12-week absence of Anthony Martial?
Yeah, I'm guessing it's a loan deal, right? I'm guessing it will be to the end of the season. Yeah, look, I think if it's a loan deal, the question I'd ask is, can you get better on loan in this window? That would be the question I'd ask. Is it a long-term plan? No. Has it got any sustainability to it for a long-term process? No. Is it a stopgap for a guy that can score goals? Yes. Look, I'll say the same thing. I said, I was on with Judge Mo earlier, and at the time it looked like it was either Chelsea or Arsenal that wanted him. I'll apply the exact same logic to you lot. For me, it depends what Benzema are you getting. There is no doubt this guy is one of the best in the world at putting the ball in the back of the net. There's no doubt. That's what he does. He's been brilliant at it for donkey's years. Question is, for me, is what version are you getting of him? Are we getting a guy that's come in for a laugh? Are we getting a guy that's coming with a point to prove? Are we getting a guy that's going to disrupt the way teams play, or is he purely going to be there just to put the ball in the back of the net? Look, if it's 6 months, 17 league games, from your point of view, if it's 17 league games and a guy can grab 8 goals, 9 goals, he could be the difference between European football or not. So I don't think it's the worst deal on a 6-month basis, but as long as there's a long-term plan after him in the summer, then yeah. But it feels like there's many teams that want to take him. It just depends what version you're getting of him.
I get what look, I still think he's one of the best strikers in the world. I still think that he could score. Let's say he plays 17 league games. There is a possibility he could walk away, as you say, with anywhere between 7 to 10 goals, which would not be a bad return. I think needs must for Man United. I wouldn't be happy if this was a permanent deal and we were spending 35 million on him, giving him a 2.5-year deal, because you don't quite know how a 36-year-old body is going to translate. And if you buy him and you've got him on a long-term contract, you're stuck with a problem if indeed he doesn't adapt. However, if he comes in and looks really good, still looks fresh, you've got the best version of him, you do the loan deal, and then you assess in the summer. We need some experience alongside Rasmus Højlund. Anthony Martial's body, bless his heart, is made of biscuits, and he's never going to ever get back to the best version of himself, and he's never ever going to reach the levels we were hoping for from him. So he is not there to support. I don't want to overplay Rasmus Højlund. I don't want to start playing Rashford as a 9 again, or Bruno as a false 9. So for me, I look at it as this isn't. I don't view this in the same way as a Ronaldo deal, which we shouldn't have done. I don't view this as giving a 35, 36-year-old aging player a medium to long-term contract when we really should be investing in younger players. I think this is a great short-term deal. But let's say he does do a great job. Let's say he does score 8, 9 goals. Let's say he helps us go on a great FA Cup run, as an example. Then you assess it in the summer. And maybe you go back to his club in Saudi. Maybe you speak to the player again and you say, do you know what? We need that experience next to Rasmus Højlund. Maybe you look at another short-term deal. Maybe you look at maybe you loan him for the next season. Maybe you buy him potentially on a year-long deal as an example and say, we're going to keep it really, really short-term, but you could be that sort of stopgap because we need some more experience in and around Rasmus Højlund, but I don't think he's that far away personally. I think having someone like Karim Benzema, as long as his attitude's in the right place, which I'm sure it will be, His experience is absolutely priceless. His know-how is there. But to your point, we have to make sure the player wants to be at Man United. What I don't want is the player saying, I really want to get out of Saudi, but don't really want Man United, but okay, I'll go there. Because we've been there before, and you only really want people that are coming in with the bit between their teeth to try and prove something, either to an ex-club or to themselves or to the fans, whatever the motivation, I don't really care. But you want them coming there with the bit between their teeth, wanting to deliver for you, not, I prefer Arsenal, I prefer to go back to Lyon, I prefer to go to Spain, but I'll settle for Man United. We can't allow players to our club that only want to settle. So I'm excited about the prospect, but it has to tick multiple boxes for me.
I'll tell you, something you said there is quite important. Look, I don't think it will happen for him with any of the clubs. If I'm brutally honest, I don't think it will
stay.
I think he will stay. Listen, if he does move, he moves. It's of no bother to me, right? My club aren't involved in this, right? It's of no bother to me. He's not coming to Spurs, right? I think let's just play the hypothetical game. If he does come, I think one of the things you just hit on the point there was really, really, really good. What could it do for Rasmus Højlund? Even if it's for 5 months, learning, training with Benzema, seeing his movement, seeing his off the ball movement, seeing his link up play, seeing the runs he makes, seeing the timing of when to jump, when not to jump, you know, when to pull off from the defender, when to go the other side of him. I think that could be priceless for someone like Rasmus Højlund. Because at the moment, who's he learning off? Who's he learning off at Man United? You know, he's a young kid. Who is he learning the art of being a striker off of?
No one. There is no one. There's nobody there. You've got Benny McCarthy, who's a coach that can show him, but that's going to predominantly be video footage and verbally. Benny McCarthy, just, you know, I doubt he's able to move on the training ground like he used to. So we're missing that elder statesman. It's the reason why I think Chelsea should be all over this. Having him in that Chelsea squad with so many of their young players, and he can help people that are not even strikers. He can help the midfielders understand, when I do this is when you release there's so many players that he can help develop in terms of the young people because of who he is, where he's been, his understanding of the game, his know-how. This man has operated at the highest level of world football for 15 years. He's one of the greatest football players, not just of this generation. He's one of the greatest football players Europe has ever produced. One of the greatest, for me, he's in the top 3 to 4 Champions League players of all time. He's one of the greatest Real Madrid players of all time. Someone in the comment wrote that what's the financial benefit? And for me, it's a case of the financial benefit is just take away what he might do on the pitch. Having someone like him in and around your players for a 6-month period, I think is invaluable as long as he really wants to come to your club. That's the only time, the only caveat I would throw into that sentence is, if he doesn't really want to be there, you should avoid it. But if he does and he's sitting there and saying, look, I want to be part of this, what the likes of Rasmus Højlund, the likes of Jackson could learn from this man is priceless, in my opinion.
Yeah,
priceless.
I think, back in the day, you used to have clubs that had 3 or 4 strikers in their squad, and you'd normally have a couple of senior pros and then maybe a couple of younger ones that would learn from the senior pros. That seems to have gone now. That seems to have died down a little bit, but wouldn't it be amazing to watch him in training? You know, you always hear these stories of the younger players that when they were growing up and they had top pros to watch in training week in, week out. Like the reason Phil Foden wasn't sent on loan by Man City. Instead, all week, every week in training, he's watching the David Silvas and the Kevin De Bruynes. Do you know what I mean? He's watching the Bernardo Silvas playing, the way they move the ball, the way they carry themselves, their professionalism. That's only a good thing. It can only rub off on other players. So, I think it'll be good. As I said, I don't think it will happen. I don't. But
you're a party pooper, Sav. You're just a party pooper.
Listen. Do you know what I'd like to? I wouldn't mind seeing it. I wouldn't mind seeing it to see what he's got.
Maybe, Sav. Maybe if we both had just more education, really, and we studied more at school and university, we'd understand these things a bit better. Do you know what I mean?
Well, mate, listen, maybe. But listen, in my point of view, I don't think it will happen. Look, he's been one of the greatest strikers of the last couple of decades. Look, let's be fair. This wouldn't be happening if there were more forwards out there in the world that score goals. And right now, you've got straight away in the Premier League, we're talking about Arsenal, Man Utd, and Chelsea. All need goal scorer. All need a goal scorer.
There's a claim. I want to put this comment up for you. This comment is, first of all, I want to come to this one first, actually. Terry did not see the report of Benzema said he denies claims he wants to leave. Now, again, I'm taking that with a pinch of salt. I'm not denying he hasn't made that claim. Of course he's going to say that, because if he has to stay, he has to face his fans. And everybody that tries to leave a club, atypically, 95% of them publicly state they want to stay. Harry Kane this summer, I'm here, I'm Tottenham. He left. You don't. If you do it the other way, like Kane did a few years ago, you face a barrage of abuse. So I don't really care that he said that. That's irrelevant personally to me. Josh here, this is a big claim. If Chelsea or Man United acquire Uncle Ben's, he will get them top 4, in my opinion.
It's a big ask. It's a really, really big ask for both those clubs. I mean, I'm looking at the league table now. Man United are currently 11 points off Villa in 4th. Chelsea are 12 points off Villa in 4th. What you're asking there is that whatever Aston Villa do, they've got to do 4 games better. It's a big ask with 17 games to go. It's not impossible, but you'd have to have, I say Villa, Spurs, Arsenal, all of them. Chelsea and Man United would have to have a 4-game swing. So if we won 12 games, I say Spurs, Arsenal, Villa all won 12 games, your clubs would have to win 16 of the last 17s. 16 of the last 17. Yeah, it's a big ask. It's a big ask.
It is a very, very, very... How far are Man United away, did you say?
Man United are currently 11 points behind Villa in 4th and 8 points behind Spurs in 5th. That's 4 wins.
Yes, it's a long way. I'd love it to happen, but it's as you say, it's probably just too many at this point. But I certainly think he helps guarantee one of them a European position next year.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. So definitely.
I think he certainly does that. I'm still not sure about Man United's creativity, even with Benzema. I'm really not. Chelsea, on the other hand, though, I mean, they're 3 wins on. They've won 4 of their last 5 games.
Yeah.
If they kind of, again, the next 10 games will be interesting. If Chelsea can echo their current winning form for the next 10 games, if they win 8 of their next 10, as an example, and start scoring. I mean, they scored 6 last night as an example. 2 against Palace, 3 against. If they start scoring more goals, and they were to do that, and they were to win 8 of their next 10 games, then you assess where they are. There's then a possibility as an example, but. Yeah, I don't know. Josh, I want to back you, my G. I love you, Josh. You've been one of my members and one longest standing viewers. I want to back you, but I can't say it. I wish.
It would go down. If he went there and made it happen with his goals, it would go down as one of the best signings ever for impact. But it's just too much of a big ask. It's such a big ask. 4-game swing with 17 to go. It's a lot. It really is a lot. Not impossible, but you're asking for 2 of those. Let's be fair, at the moment, there's 5 teams up there, right? Spurs, Arsenal, Villa, Liverpool and City. Spurs, Arsenal and Villa are a little bit further down. Those 3 would all have to lose 4 more games than what Man U or Chelsea win in the next 17 games. So, big ask.
It is a big ask. But then if I had to separate Man United, because everybody will think I'm being biased. If I just talk about Chelsea, what they've lacked is someone putting the ball in the back of their net. Yep. If they maintain the level of creativity and they start winning the game, this is where it could work. In a hypothetical scenario for Chelsea, say he comes in today and he helps Chelsea win they win 3 of the next 4 games.
Yeah.
But in that time period, Villa only win 1 and draw 1, and suddenly you only need a 2-game swing.
Yeah, of course.
16 games to go. Then suddenly it's like, because then the pressure then mounts on the person in front. Because at the moment, whenever you've got like a 4 or 5 game swing with this amount of time left, you feel relaxed until you lose a few games and the gap closes. So yeah, it's plausible, but very unlikely. Yeah, I do agree with you. I'm just sort of excited about a prospect a bit more than anything. But look, we'll see what happens in the coming days and the coming weeks. Well, not weeks, the coming days surrounding this. I still think there could be some movement with this player. And I feel like what the Premier League clubs have been waiting for is, although his club in Saudi are not very happy about his absence and everything else, I think they're almost waiting for there to be a bit of an agreement between the player and his club of, okay, we'll let you go in the short term. Then they may step in because you'll probably get a better financial deal. If you make the approach 2 weeks ago, they probably say, well, you pay half his wages, and that will scare everybody away, having to pay 500, 600,000 pound a week for him. However, you can bring him in for 150, 200 grand a week between now and the end of the season. He could be invaluable. I do think, though, and I've actually been approached this afternoon by a journalist that reported this about Arsenal. He said to me here, he said, just a heads up, I wanted to back up what others have said about Benzema has been discussed by Arsenal and offered to them. He said that that is a deal that is also essentially ongoing. However, the reports also echoed that Arsenal may not be interested in bringing him in. If Arsenal have the chance of signing Benzema, do you think that's a big miss from them if they personally step away from it?
I think if Arsenal have the chance, lots of ifs, if Arsenal have the chance and turn him down and he ends up going to someone else in the Premier League, then you have to say yes. Because what we just talked about, the scenario of what he could do for Chelsea and Man United, Arsenal are right there. What he could do for Arsenal could be massive. Now, I don't think they're going to win the league, even if they get him, but he could cement them top 4. At the moment, they're not guaranteed top 4, but he could cement them top 4. So, I feel it would be a big miss for anyone not to get him if he moves to the UK. If he stays out there in Saudi, though, then I feel like it's not a miss for anyone, because lots of reports saying he doesn't want to come. But I don't know. We've heard loads of times players want to stay, I don't want to move, and then things happen. So we'll see. 8 days to go, or 7.5 days to go of the transfer window. We'll find out. But all I know is one of those clubs have got to try something, right? All 3 of them need to find some goals from somewhere, don't they?
Well, I've said it before. If Arsenal are in a position where they, if Arsenal are in a position where they can sign him and they say no, they've got to get this absolutely spot on. They have to get this absolutely right in every single capacity. And what I mean, the Sammy McBell report stated they're going to go and look for a defender. So whatever they go and do, they have to go on and end the season exceedingly well. If they end up missing out on, say, winning the Premier League because they didn't score enough goals. Say they keep the clean sheets, but they didn't win enough games because they didn't score enough goals. But they bought a defender and not Benzema, hell to pay. If they get knocked out in the semi-final of the Champions League, let's just say it's to, I don't know, Bayern Munich. But they had loads of gilt-edged chances, but they missed them. It's a good train of thought to say, well, Benzema might have tucked some of them away. They'll be hell to pay. So if they say no to this, you have to come out smelling the roses. So the pressure mounting up on Arteta, if he says no to this, is huge. I understand, by the way, because I disagree with Arsenal fans that state, someone here says source. The source is on Arsenal having conversations with him. Fraser Fletcher, Nazir Kinsella, Sammy McBell. They are highly credible sources. So I trust them. I just don't believe those three journalists combined are making that up. Now, what I find interesting about this is where I disagree with some Arsenal fans. I agree with their, why don't we get Benzema? Where I disagree, if you've got a number 1 target, say it's Osimhen, say it's Tony, and they're not available now, you don't settle for someone that's subpar to that player now in January. Because that means in the summer, you're then going to pass up the opportunity of somebody that's better. Although I understand the notion of trying to win right now in the here and now, I don't think, and I know this will upset certain Arsenal fans when it comes to processes, but I don't think you sign your 3rd choice, your 4th choice, your 5th choice, or your 6th choice if you can get your number 1 target in 6 months' time. Sometimes I think you can't always live in the here and now. You have to think about the future at the same time, because that element is really important.
I think it always depends, this discussion, on where you are in the league, what can still be achieved, and what your short-term versus long-term goals are. So, for example, would let me just use Man United, for example. Would Man United need to, they'll be looking right now going, right, look, it's probably unlikely they're going to make top 4 from where they are. Not impossible, probably unlikely. Do they want to go and do something out of desperation that will cost them more than they wanted in wages, that will upset the apple cart, to try and strive for something that's not within their reach? Or do they want to wait and follow a plan, if they've got one, for the summer, because they know that at the moment the short-term plan is just getting through to the end of the season rather than trying to pull up trees in the last half of the season. I don't know, mate. I don't know. But for me, I feel like there's a lot of clubs that look like they're going backwards at the moment. From last season, well, definitely in terms of league position. If you look at
who's going backwards compared to last year,
I think Man United.
Granted,
like they're going backwards in terms of league position. I think Arsenal will as well. If Arsenal,
but when you say going backwards, it's a really good point. How far backwards are you talking? Because for me, when I think of going backwards, I look at it as in a single season. Yes, right now they were top this time last year. They're currently sitting third, so they've gone backwards. But have they really become? I sort of view the term going backwards as you've really dropped off and you ain't coming back anytime soon.
Oh yeah, listen. It all depends what the meaning means. I'm talking about.
I'm trying to understand the meaning.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of where they are now. Listen, I'm never one that thinks, "Oh my God, you've had a bad year." You are like when football fans use the terms like, "Oh my God, they're dead. The club's finished." Last year, Liverpool, club's finished. Klopp's dead. They're rubbish. Look where they are now, right? So like, I'm not meaning like that, but what I'm talking about is in terms of what the Arsenal and Man United at the beginning of this season, what would their minimum expectation be for this season, Terry? Minimum.
Listen, I think Arsenal
Champions League, right?
Well, I think Arsenal's minimum expectations that they would have wanted to have won a domestic trophy. That can't happen now. That's a smudge.
Sure.
I think they would expect to get to at least the quarterfinals of the Champions League.
Sure.
And being the title race. And so far, their main two objectives are still on. So I do think points totals are a solid barometer.
You think the title is still on? Is that one of the big two you're talking about, that and the Champions League?
Arsenal are still in the title race. There's no shadow of a doubt to me. Arsenal are still in this title race. They've not been my favourites all year. So I felt that Man City were the favourites, but Arsenal were definitely still in this title race. They answered their critics at the weekend with an emphatic 5-0 win. Yes, some of the goals came late, but what's the difference? The goals are goals. Who did they play? Palace came there to stink the place out, sit behind the ball, make it hard for them. By the way, this is the same Palace team that drew at the Etihad a few weeks ago. So people acting like this is the worst Palace team in history. It's only a few weeks ago. Everybody was going, wow, look what they just did to Man City. And Arsenal absolutely dominated them from start to finish. They became more clinical as it went on. They're in the title race. They listen, Liverpool are right 5 points clear of them right now. There's no doubt about it. But I think people writing Arsenal off as they've gone backwards this year, I think it's a slight overstatement. I'll give you an example. I read an article this morning that said the curse of Harry Kane has struck again. Real Madrid and Bayern Munich have gone backwards.
I
think they are, I want to say they're 5-6 points off the top.
7.
So they're 7 points off the top.
Game in hand, yeah.
Yes, game in hand. Let's say they win their game in hand, because that's what I looked at. They'll be 4 points behind. If they win the game in hand, they're actually 3 points better off than they were last year. But that's why points totals are not the ultimate barometer.
I'm not doing it by points total. I'm not doing it by points total.
I'm not saying you are.
If you look at Arsenal, everything.
Last year they were in a title race. This year they're in a title race. So I don't see that as overly going backwards.
See, I don't think they are. So that's the difference between me and you. Okay. I don't think they are. Terry, I've not changed my opinion on this all season, right? I've gone City, Liverpool, Arsenal. That's the three. That's what I think the first three will be. For me, it's everything with Arsenal. Last year, I can't remember, I enjoyed watching Arsenal. Shocking, isn't it? The Spurs fans will hate me. I enjoyed watching Arsenal games. I thought they played some lovely stuff. Their football was good. They scored loads of goals. I thought they were really going on the right track. And then I just don't feel that they had a summer that was good enough to really go and challenge. And they're worse off on points. Their football's not as good. They're not scoring as many goals. The players don't look as good. But I'm someone that maybe when I say they've dropped off, I think that last year an anomaly. I mean, lots of people are going on like they challenge every year, Terry. That's the first time they've challenged for many years. Was that an anomaly last year? Are we expecting, as football fans, too much of them because they finished second once? Are we expecting, they should just go and challenge again or finish? I'm not saying they're a million miles off it. I just think that when I look at them and I look at the top two, I think there's a lot of difference, a huge difference.
I understand the challenges. I look at it this way. They've only scored, I think, 4 less goals. Top of my head, 4 less goals than they did last year. So I don't see that as a huge drop-off. They've conceded less goals by 1 or 2 compared to last year. So there's a marginal drop-off in goals scored, and there's a marginal improvement in the goals conceded. They actually weren't top this time last year. Man City actually were top at this stage on 51 points. So they had 51 points this time last year, Arsenal, but so did Man City. And Man City and them are both sitting on 43 points this year. So that's why for me, and I don't think City have dropped off massively. I think what's happened this year is Liverpool are better than they were last year. Villa are better than they were. You boys are much better than you were. West Ham have been a good team this season. Brighton, as much as people like they went for a bad run, they're still 7th in the Premier League, Brighton, with only 5 defeats. You know, like Arsenal have had 4, Villa have been praised, they've got 4, Spurs have had 4. Brighton are a good team this year. And then what we know in the bottom half, you look at the teams in the bottom half of the table. Wolves have actually had a really good season, I feel. They're 11th. Bournemouth have been beating people. Fulham are a dangerous team. Brentford can be dangerous. They're all in the bottom half of the table. So this is a really difficult league. There's quality from top to bottom. And it's just one of those seasons where there's lots of teams that are better. And I don't know about you. I feel the best era of the Premier League where I feel like we had the biggest depth of class was from about 03-04 till about 2012, 2013. And I say that because every year of those seasons, 3 to 4 minimum of the Premier League teams in the Champions League were good enough to win the Champions League. And we looked at them as brilliant. But the points totals of the Premier League winners back then were not as high as you've seen in the last 4 or 5 years. That isn't a dig at those teams back then or a dig at Liverpool and City. I think these current Liverpool and City teams would have competed with those teams back then. The difference was, you go back to those days, there was also really good teams in 5th and 6th and 7th and 8th. And I think when City were at their pomp and Liverpool in the last few years, you had the top 2 that were amazing. And then you kind of had everybody else. What we're now seeing is 3 or 4 more teams join that party where they're just below that elite level, and then some really good teams underneath it. So what invariably that means is there'll be less points handed out to the teams at the top.
Terry, I understand all this. Look, it's really difficult. Whenever I come on here as a Spurs fan and I'm asked about Arsenal, straight away, all you get is, oh, you're biased. I try and be as less biased as possible. I've already said I think Arsenal will finish above us. I think I've stated that many times, right? I think it's going to be a lot closer than I originally thought. But I still think Arsenal will get 3rd. But all the conversations I'm having this year about Arsenal, Terry, you know, we've been streaming together long enough now. You know, I said exactly the same things last year. And I was called an idiot then. I was told I was a biased Spurs mug then. I was told I was a salty prick then. Right? I'm saying the same things this year because I don't see any different this year from Arsenal to last year. I don't see that they've made that step to go there. Now, if everyone wants to call me salty for that, cool. I just don't. I think deep down, a lot of Arsenal fans know that. I think they know that. They know that rather than buying Kai Havertz, there was a lot of players you could have bought that would have gone and put the ball in the net for you. You know, instead of spending £200 million. So I don't think Arsenal are bad.
I think that's fair criticism, though. I think the Kai Havertz. So I get that.
Not just the Kai Havertz. I just want
to answer this comment here. T says Terry, City were top, like basically saying that City weren't top this time last year. I was going to put it up on the screen so you guys can see it. They were when they were. There we go. I don't make up lies. I just tell you the truth. That when Arsenal were on 22 games last year, Man City were top. I didn't realize they were until I checked. I wouldn't just make it up. It's there in black and white. I do get where you're coming from, and I understand it. There's a really interesting comment here from Twisted Bubba. It's a good challenge to what I'm saying, to be fair, as in challenging me. Where's it gone? It says, Terry, you don't fully rate Arteta, but you put them in a title race. Confusing. It's not confusing. I rate him as a coach. I think he's a good coach and can get a team playing conducive, consistent football. I think he can get the team into a title race. I think he's going to do it 2 years running. It's not fully rate him, I don't know whether he can get him over the line, i.e., that's why I don't have him as favourites. So it's really not confusing at all. It isn't a case of you either win the league or you're a dog crap manager. I don't think it's as black and white, as hyperbolic or polarized as that would suggest, my friend. So again, good try, my friend. A good guy there. But yeah, look, I think with the Arsenal, do you not feel like they silenced some critics this weekend by beating Palace 5-0?
No, they should be beating They should be beating Crystal Palace. I don't think they silenced any of. Well, forget the scoreline. They should be beating them. It was a walk in the park.
Why would you forget that? Why would you forget the scoreline?
Well, because for me, at the end of the day, Arsenal should be battering teams like Crystal Palace at the Emirates. They've been together with their manager for many years now. They spent a lot of money. This isn't a top Crystal Palace team. Crystal Palace went there. For me, the mistake they made, they put 5 behind, 5-4-1. I fully expected, said it before the game, that Arsenal should be winning this comfortably, and they did. Silencing the critics will be in 2 weeks' time when they play Liverpool. That's when they can silence critics. That's when my opinion might change, Terry. If Arsenal win their next game, then beat Liverpool convincingly, and you go, oh, okay. All right, they've just made it very interesting. A draw or a defeat against Liverpool, though, keeps them out of the title race for me. I just don't see City and Liverpool dropping enough games if Arsenal do not win that game against Liverpool. I just don't. I don't think they've got the squad depth to cope with it. I don't think they've got the goal scorers. I
get where you're coming from. I understand that. I think for me, and at least you're making the one thing I like about you, Sav, is if you don't. You say they haven't silenced anybody, fair enough. But you've said what will silence them. I think what frustrates me with this discourse generally online is people say, no, they haven't silenced anyone. Well, when would you say they've silenced people? When they've won a league? It's like, okay.
Look, it depends what silencing means. Look, let's be fair. Look, for Arsenal, it was a really good win from the point of view that it was to stop a rot. Right, Spurs have had that this year where we didn't win it for 5, and it was like, right, just get a win, stop that rot, and then you can worry about performances afterwards. For me, yes, it was very important Arsenal won that game. I fully expected them to, and as soon as I saw the lineups, I thought to myself, God, Hodgson's gone. Hodgson literally for me just said, we have no interest in this game. Like, we've got no interest in winning it. Try and break us down. They actually did quite a good job stopping them in open play for a long period, but too much class from Arsenal in the end. Statements for me, the statement is go and beat Liverpool. Go and beat Liverpool, because Liverpool have only lost 1 game all year. If they beat Liverpool, that then blows it all wide open. But listen, I've said all along, Terry, I don't think either of those two are winning the league anyway. I think Man City are winning it. So
no, I understand that. What I will say is, I don't want to say that's irrelevant, like I'm being disrespectful. That's not what we're really discussing at this point, because we're talking about Arsenal going backwards and you're not thinking they're in a title race. But if they would have beat, I don't know who their next game is even against, because people think I take a massive, Nottingham Forest is looking on here. They beat Forest and then they beat Liverpool.
Oh,
are you then convinced they're in a title race?
If they beat Liverpool, yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm looking at the table now. The thing is, I've looked at Liverpool's and City's next 7 before they play each other, and I can't see either of them dropping a lot of points. But Liverpool at Arsenal is the one where they could. Let's assume, so hang on, I'm just looking at Liverpool's next game, right? So Liverpool's next game is in the league is Chelsea at home, right? I think they'll win that. Right? If Liverpool beat Chelsea at home and Arsenal then beat Forest, both teams will be exactly the same points they are distance from each other now, which is 5. Yes. Right? And that's after 22 games. They play each other in the 23rd game. If after the 23rd game of the season, Liverpool beat Arsenal and go 8 points clear of them, done. They are not having a 3-game swing in 15 games. It's not going to happen.
I hear that. Do you think Arsenal have to be convincing against Liverpool, or is it just win at any cost? So performance is irrelevant. It's just about winning for you.
To beat Liverpool?
No, so when they play Liverpool,
just win at all costs. Yeah, sorry, when I said convincingly, sorry, I probably the wrong choice of word there. What I mean is, look, get the win. By the way, I don't want them to do this, but I'm trying to take my Spurs hat off. I know what you're saying. I'm just trying to get the win. By hook or crook, get the win against Liverpool, and then that will put them 2 points behind. Now, depending on what City have done in that time, depends on how close they are to City, whatever. But get that, keep in touch, lose that game, draw that game, and I think most Arsenal fans, the honest Arsenal fans, not the ones that just can't see the wood through the trees, will probably tell you, yeah, that's it. So massive. I mean, where is Forest? Is it away?
Forest away.
Right, big gap. So Arsenal, go and get that win. Go and beat Forest, because there's your first hurdle. Then beat Liverpool. We've got a different conversation on our hands. Does that make me think they'll then win it? No, because I've been clear all along that I think Man City are winning it. But that puts them in it for me.
And I understand that. I think for me, the Liverpool game's really interesting because Liverpool are such a dangerous, clinical powerhouse right now. They are. And I've watched them. I've watched every game of theirs this season, and they're just. You're right.
Yeah. Sorry, no, I've not been very well lately. But go on. Sorry, mate. I'm getting old. I'm getting old, man. I'm struggling with life.
I get those feelings sometimes.
Sorry, I forgot I was on screen. Then I was like,
I've done it before as well. I don't know. I just want to make sure you're okay.
Yeah, no, I'm good, mate. I'll let you know if I'm having a stroke or anything.
Jeez. So where was I? So I think when it comes to Liverpool, we know how dangerous they are.
Yeah.
I still think, though, when it comes to this match, I mean, Arsenal were the favourites in this game for me, though. I know Liverpool beat them at the Emirates in the FA Cup.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact Arsenal didn't win that game is a mad... If you actually go back and watch the highlights, how they didn't score is crazy.
The first half, First half.
So I think Arsenal can still go into that. They'll go into that game with an element of nerves. Of course they will, because they know if we don't take our chances, Liverpool could beat us. But they are going to create chances against this Liverpool team. Not because Liverpool are bad, not because Liverpool are horrible, but because Arsenal, home and away in the last couple of years, they've created an abundance of chances. And I don't see that changing against them. I think Arsenal will fancy their opportunity to win. I do agree with you, though. If they lose that game and they end up 8 points off the top, it becomes an almost impossible task, not just because it's 8 points behind Liverpool. You might find by then they're 6+ points behind City. And if you end up being 6 points behind City and 8 points behind Liverpool, you then get into the realms of probability. What's the probability of a 9-point swing with Liverpool and a 7-point swing with City at the same time? I don't quite know how there might be a mathematician in watching who can work that out. But let's just say it's, I don't know, a 15-1 chance they do the 9-point swing and an 8-1 chance that they do the swing against City. I don't know what the multiples are when you put them two things together, but you might be looking at 50, 100, 200 to 1. It suddenly becomes a much harder task to jump multiple teams at the same time, because if that makes sense.
Have a look. So by then, so if you look at Man City's next games coming up, right, in the league, forget the cup. They're playing us in the cup, and forget their Champions League game. Their next games coming up are Burnley at the Etihad. And I think I speak for all fans when we probably fear how many goals they're going to put past Burnley. They've then got Brentford away and then Everton at the Etihad. Now, after that, they've got Chelsea at the Etihad, Brentford at the Etihad, Bournemouth away, United at home, and then they play Liverpool. In those 7 games, I can't see them dropping maybe 1 draw and 6 wins. I can't see them getting beaten at this stage of the season, Terry. That's why it's so important that Arsenal, if they're going to be considered in this title race, have to win this one and beat Liverpool. If Liverpool win their next 2 and City win their next 3, Arsenal, by default, Arsenal would have had to have lost the game for those 2 things to happen, and then they'll be out of it for me.
I just got a probability calculator here, but this is in percentages, so I don't know what the percentages would be. So it's 9. I need to find one. So there are probability calculators out there. I don't have a good enough maths ability to be able to do it without it, but I'm gonna work it out. If somebody wants to do that for us, someone must be watching, must be much smarter than I am. I'm just making these odds up. I don't know what they would be, but let's just say 15-1 times 12-1. What are the odds on that happening, and what does that work out as a percentage? Someone let us know, but it's going to be a high percentage. I don't know. Honestly, I probably did this at school, but I left school 20 odd years ago and I haven't done that kind of maths in a long time. So, and we're talking while we're live on the air, so I'm not too sure what that would be. And all these calculators are in crazy math terms, and I ain't got the time to read it. Just one of those things. I bet if I read it for 10 minutes, I'd be like, oh, I remember doing that at school, because I did some algebra not long ago with one of my cousins. And at first, my brain weren't working. Once I started reading their book, I was like, it all came back. It's in there, right at the back of my head. I'm just old and dumb, as we found out today. I got tagged, by the way. I just noticed now in my notifications, I've been tagged by bare people into that video.
I'm not saying anything, man. I'm not saying anything.
Well, good. It's all. Someone said, is that what it is? A 2% chance. It's obviously 6.25%. See, that's what I mean. I don't know. I need to look at it, but I'm doing it like while live streaming on the air, and I had time to research it. Red Square here says Arsenal took a near 200 million loss to get the attitude of the squad right. Why take a risk on a player who is good but has had a career with discipline issues? Benzema and Arteta are not a match. No. There we go. I don't know.
I don't know what.
Yeah, listen, it's fair. I mean, does he have that?
I mean, I feel like we're doing that thing again where we're all pretending. For all we know, Arteta and Benzema could get on like a house on fire. I don't know. But it goes back to what we said right at the beginning, Terry. It has to want to be Benzema wanting to come here and coming here with the right attitude. Without that, none of this means anything, right? But I don't think it will happen. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. 1 second. I'm just trying to work this out here. Oh wow. Yeah. So it was someone just sent me this, and I'm assessing it's right. If it was 15 to 1 times 12 to 1, that'd make it 180 to 1. And to put that into context right now, odds to win the Premier League, right? If we just search what the odds are on it right now. So that's, to give you an example, Man United are currently between 250 to 400 to 1 to win it. So, and Aston Villa are currently 40 to 1 to win it, and they're where they are in the league. So you're talking about, you're looking at odds that are not too far away from, it's like saying Man United to win the league right now on both those, the probability of both those events happening. So it does go to show if Arsenal don't win that game on a probability level, it's the same as Man United winning the league from this point. That's well, it's not quite as hard as that, but it isn't too far away. Because I don't know about you, Sav. If someone said to me 180 to 1 or 250 to 1 as a bet, they're pretty similar to me. They're a long bloody shot.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, I might chuck £1 on, but I'm not putting big money on anyone at 180.
No, exactly.
What were Leicester? What were Leicester at the beginning of the year?
Oh,
they
were like 2,000, 3,000 to 1, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would have liked to have had
which means if Arsenal don't win, it doesn't mean they can't do it. It's just more and more unlikely. Because again, the probability of multiple things happening at the same time, it becomes much harder to do. Sava, been looking at your predictions since day one, and you said Arsenal will come second. Why are you saying I have said Liverpool are second since day one?
I think that Terry will back me up, as will most of the people in the chat, as to everyone who listens to me the 3 times a day that I'm live. I can't say it anymore that I've said since day one, City from Liverpool from Arsenal. I don't think I've ever changed that stance. Terry, have you heard me say anything different? I don't
remember you saying Arsenal coming second personally.
It's because it didn't, Terry. You know why you don't remember it? It never happened. I've always said City from Liverpool from Arsenal. I just think the other two are too strong. The thing that I always said about Liverpool last year was, look, they've got too many forwards. They've got goals. When you've got that many goals, look at the road. Look at the moment, right? Look at Mo Salah's out. When Spurs don't have Son, we're all going, where's our goals coming from? Do you know what I mean? Like, who's going to score goals when Son's out? Liverpool have got no Salah. Yeah, Diaz will grab a few. Yotta's grabbing a few. Nunez is grabbing a few. Gakpo's grabbing a few. That's why. That's the difference for me. Liverpool have got a lot more than Arsenal in that area, and that's the difference.
There we go. Someone here just sent me the percentage. If you're at 180 to 1, right, that means you've got a 0.56% chance of doing it. Again, I don't know if that's true, but again, by what someone has DM'd me here. So again, I'm not a statistician. I'm actually going to ask Will Stewart, because he is one. He probably knows the maths on this on top of his head. But I'm going to look into this and learn it. I'm going to go back and learn it. But if that's true, that's your percentage chances. That is a crazy, if true. Guirassy is such a low risk. Why isn't anyone looking at him? Is he available on loan? That's the first question.
I don't. I mean, it's difficult, isn't it, with Guirassy? Because again, this is one of those players that's just done it for a very short period of time.
That was really the point, yeah.
So are people buying him because he's the long-term plan? I don't know. Is he a short-term plan? Sure. Would he move for that? Is he somebody's first choice? I don't know. This guy, whenever I've watched him, I've not been that impressed. He's in a purple patch. I like players that do it for a number of years before we start hyping them up. But for me, I've not seen enough of this guy to convince me that he should be going to a club like Chelsea, Man United, or Arsenal, if that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. No, someone just confirmed to me. I know I'm changing the subject again. Yes, it's a 0.56% chance of happening. So 100 to 1 is a 1% chance of it happening. That makes a lot of sense thinking about the maths. So yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. So you've got a 0.56% chance of it happening if Arsenal lose to Liverpool and City and Liverpool win both their games between now and then, it becomes nigh impossible. I agree with you on Guirassy. For me, I think it's very much a case of, unless you could, again, short-term loan, it could make a lot of sense. You may say, like, is he available for 17 million now? I don't know the answer to that. If he's not someone that's been high up on your priority list, one purple patch season should not make him your number one choice.
Yeah,
I think it would be too big a risk. At the sake of, I don't necessarily think he's that much better than Eddie Nketiah. And Arsenal fans are going, what? Eddie Nketiah's rubbish. Some will. I think if you put, I just don't think he's that much better than Eddie Nketiah. And there's no point spending money on somebody that's in and around what you've already got. You want to spend to vastly improve and not waste money. So I'm not convinced. Look, he's had a really good season, but I've seen Tammy Abraham have patches like that in seasons and everything else. I don't think he's okay.
I think we do this a lot, don't we? We see a player have a purple patch and then pronounce them to be the next best thing. Look, I'm not saying that guy has, by the way. Lots of people talking about Guirassy. For me, I need to see more of it. He's 27, 28, and he's never really scored goals wherever he's been. So, look, sometimes I think sometimes it's the right club, right team, right manager, right time, right? Sometimes it all comes together and works nicely. Like I've always said about Spurs 11 under Poch. Didn't God's win anything, but we were good because everything kind of gelled at the right time. Is that what Guirassy's got now? I don't know, but it's telling that nobody's come in and putting a bid for him.
Yeah, it's hugely telling. And I always talk about players that everyone raves about. You can tell by who they play for, who tries to buy them, by how good they really are. So sometimes put your own personal feelings about a player aside and say, well, who's trying to buy that person? Yeah, and but even if it's a personality issue as to why they're not being purchased, that's still an attribute of a football player. And as good as you think they are, if I don't know, say they were at Brentford and they're killing it, and you think they're a world-class player, but when they leave Brentford, the only team that comes in to buy them is Sporting Lisbon or Salzburg. That tells you they're not as good as you think they are. That should be the clear message of, I think my eye test was wrong on this one.
I agree. I was just going to say, just seeing the breaking news on Sky that our former owner Joe Lewis has just pled guilty to 3 charges of insider trading in the US. So good old Joe Lewis, squeaky clean Tottenham.
Well, what's interesting about this situation, when he was arrested or handed himself in for this, I don't remember who posted it, but everyone was like, oh my God, Spurs could be in trouble potentially. Their owner. No. He was removed as officially being part of of Spurs as an owner on the company's house a while ago, which tells you it was either
they knew
or they knew this was, again, when you're that rich in this world, you know before it happens that you're in trouble, because people like that have amazing lawyers who have contacts everywhere. You know, and it would have been, listen, you're being investigated for inside trading. So what they probably did with all the companies he's involved with is found a way of removing himself so those companies are as far as
Unaffected,
possible removed. So theoretically, this has nothing to do with Tottenham because Joe Lewis for about 2 years now has had nothing to do with Tottenham. So
I tell you what, theoretically, for 23 years, the guy's had nothing to do with Tottenham. He bought us and then hasn't pumped in any money in. Like I wouldn't mind if he'd done insider trading and then given billions to Spurs to go and buy the title or something. But he didn't. But it's funny because
sitting there in fan prison.
Oh, mate, it's funny because Joe Lewis is one of those owners where, like, when people would always say things when he was still officially our owner, people would say things, oh, but Spurs haven't got the money that Chelsea and these lot have got. And it's like, hang on, do you know who our owner is? Our owner is filthy. He is filthy rich. I don't know if you remember that time when he came, he was coming down the Thames and they had to lift up London Bridge to let his like £400 million yacht through or something. Like, you've made it when you're ringing up someone going, hello, I'm on the Thames. Could you stop all of London traffic, please? So we just ridiculous. But yeah, anyway, so he's pled guilty. So well done, Super Joe Lewis I think he's like mid-80s now. Like,
yeah, I mean, I you probably find as well, he's probably pled guilty. He's probably going to pay some fines. I doubt he'll do any jail time at his age. And if he does, it'll be one of them prisons where it's basically like a retirement home for old people.
Oh, mate.
Where he's like allowed out. The thing is as well, like, yeah, his age, what he's done, he won't do hard porridge. So he ain't going to do no proper bird. It'll just be, it'll probably have
house
to go in
arrest.
for weekends. Yeah. And imagine I wouldn't mind being under house arrest in a house like his.
Oh, mate.
Do you remember? I remember during lockdown, Ricky Gervais did like a live stream, and he was talking about all the celebrities that were crying that they were trapped indoors, and he was showing pictures of the houses of the people. It's like some of these people were crying about being stuck in these mansions that had cinemas and tennis courts and swimming pools, and they also moved all their friends and family and entourage in, so it was full of people. They had all the food and drink in the world, and they were moaning still at being locked in. Yeah, that's not really.
I mean, like, he lives there in the Bahamas. Look, do you know what I mean? Like. Yeah, look at his rubbish view from his balcony in the Bahamas. Oh God. Yeah, sorry. Mid-80s, house arrest, he'll have maids for days, chefs. Yeah. I'm sure he's worried.
Yeah, I'm sure. Sure, he's absolutely cacking himself. Jimmy here says hearing quite a lot of noise coming out of Italy that Osimhen to Chelsea is more or less a gentleman's agreement. Thoughts on that, gents? Benzema until then, but yeah, thoughts on Osimhen to Chelsea?
Yeah, I mean, I can't see it happening now. I'm guessing this means a gentleman's agreement for the summer.
Yeah.
Osimhen's a funny one for me. Scores goals, no doubt he scores goals. You can never knock a bloke that scores that level of goals. But I don't know about you, Terry. I never watch him and think, oh, do you know what I mean? I never watch him and think, God, you're a top player. But he grabs goals. Is it what Chelsea need? They need a goal scorer. Could be good, beneficial both ways. I don't know, depending how much he costs. I could say good signing, but I don't know the figures involved. Yeah, why not?
I hear you. I sort of think with Victor Osimhen, I kind of agree with you. He isn't a kind of, he's not like a Harry Kane, who's a number 9, but brilliant on the ball, creates and all of that type of thing. He's not a Lionel Messi who's brilliant. He just reminds me, good hold up play, good technical ability, very good finisher.
Yeah,
full of pace, full of strength, great athlete. That's what he is, and I think there's not much. I mean, he's not bad on the ball. I'm not saying he's he's a lot better than Lukaku. He's very, very good. He'll score some of his own goals, but he'll need feeding. He'll need creativity.
I Chelsea do that. Chelsea do create. So yeah. Listen, could be a very good move. Look, Terry, you know me by now. I'm of the opinion I don't think there's many good strikers in the world anymore. So for me, I think he is one of the ones you'd have to look at. I'm guessing they're going to have to pay a small ransom to get him. But, hey, that's what they do, isn't it? So, yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Viewers, let us know what you think and feel about that. Now, it's been an interesting few weeks, really, in relations to points deductions. A lot of people talk about City's allegations and everything else surrounding them. But there are new cheat allegations that are arising surrounding Newcastle. And there's a lot of people, and I've been called out for defending them, that they shouldn't be allowed to sell their players to Saudi. You know, they've got new sponsorships coming in, which are going to be against the rules. What is your take on this, with everybody now thinking that everybody else is cheating in the game?
Oh, I just want to go back to when football was a simpler place. I don't understand. It used to be, you had 20 teams, everyone would play at the weekend. There was none of this nonsense, none of this worrying about who's cheated, FFP, VAR. Can we just go back to a simpler time? Look, I don't know, but all of a sudden it's come out, hasn't it, that I think it was all sort of last week it came out that Newcastle are open to selling Isak and Guirassy and Wilson and Trippier and Almiron. And you're just sitting there thinking, oh my God, what's happening to football? This is a club that's just been taken over by, they've got the richest owners in the world, right?
Yes.
Right. When you look at that, it just don't, it don't make sense, does it? You've got the richest owners in the world that want to come in and put their money in, but the rules don't allow it. Look, I don't know, mate. I just think we're making football very, very complicated with way too many rules. I'm not sure at this stage who is being protected. I think they said it was first when FFP and all that came in, it was to protect teams. I don't know who it's protecting anymore. I don't know the positives to it. All I know is that we're going to have this every year now. It's going to be, oh, you won that, but you cheated. Oh, that player was cheated. Oh, they've done this. They've got points deducted. You know, they've been fined 15 million over here. Everton, Forest, Newcastle. You're talking about Chelsea getting it done to them, City getting it done to them. Surely it starts to not mean anything if everybody's getting in trouble. Do you know what I mean? If everyone's going to get caught up in it, what are we doing here?
When you say that, though, there was an interest. I don't know if you've seen this interview that the CEO of Brighton gave. I'll play it for the video for the intents and purposes of what we're talking about, because it's really interesting for me. Let me just, where's it gone? Where's it at? Here it is. Let me just, it's a bit from TalkSport. Let's take a listen to what he said.
There have been calls when the financial fair play rules was set up. It's, I think, about 10 years ago now. And, of course, the money that's come into football between now and then has changed dramatically. There have been calls from some clubs, or some fans have phoned up. So maybe that amount of money, which is, I think, it's 105 over the 3 years, or £35 million every year for those three, that maybe that should be looked at again. And maybe that should, this sounds bizarre, but you should be allowed to lose more money. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Only in football would we say that, wouldn't we? Only in football would be arguing about wanting to lose more money. I mean, that's just a bizarre concept, and not one that I think any of us should sign up to. We should be looking at rules that limit our losses, make our clubs more sustainable, ensure that we live within our means as best we can. I think it is wrong to be talking about wanting to lose more money. That's just not a sustainable proposition for any business. And
it goes on, so on, and therefore that if you obviously relax the rules of FFP so that you can lose 200 million or 300 million, or you scrap it all together and clubs can lose as much as they want, what you then do is, I mean, Reading are a prime example right now. I know they're in League One, but they were a Premier League team. They are close to going out of business because an owner started to invest. That led to lots of debts because obviously you create big wage bills, etc. The income isn't there because they basically have gambled. They've gambled in investing loads in an attempt to get back to the Championship, in an attempt to get back to the Premier League. That investment hasn't worked. It's landed them in debt. Now their owner isn't putting any more money in, and Reading are very close to going out of business forever. The thing I would say about FFP is this: if you allow all clubs to just keep losing money, isn't it conceivable that, yes, you'll get some great owners like Roman that won't let it happen, Sheikh Mansour that won't let it happen, but what if Newcastle run up debts of £1 billion, and then for one reason or another, it could be a sanction because of governments, it could be because the Saudis don't want to put money in anymore. What if then they're just left with £1 billion debt and they go out of business? Like, is that responsible to allow that to be a possibility?
No. But by the way, when I said earlier, I've not condoned people should be able to lose more money. For me, I think they've just got to make a much clearer rule. For me, I think it's got to be a much clearer rule. Look, lots of people have their own theories on what this should be, Terry. Some people think it should be a wage cap. Some people think it should be you can have X amount spent every summer and you can't go over that amount. That maybe you can spend what you want as long as you're making 50% of that money back in the same window. I don't know. Look, I'm not you know, it's not my job to do that, right? It's not your job to do it. We're just football fans surmising. For me, though, I just don't think this current format works. I truly don't.
In what regard doesn't it work, though? That's what I don't. That's the only bit I don't understand about what you're saying.
Yeah.
How is it not working?
Who is it helping? For something to be working, I need to know who it's helping.
Well, it's stopping multiple clubs from running up debts that could potentially put them out of business. Like Reading are an example, because they're a much smaller club. So a club like Reading losing £100 million is catastrophic compared to
you've gone to League One. You've gone to League One. I'm talking about this end.
I've gone to League. Yeah, but the reason we're not seeing it at this end is because our clubs make so much more money. But the point I'm making is this: say Reading lose £100 million, that's almost catastrophic. They're in trouble. They may never recover. If Man United lose £100 million in a year, we're okay. But if you allow Man United to lose £1 billion, we will be where Reading are, because we won't be able to recover that money if it goes wrong. And Reading's essentially, and we've had people on this show say this, go for broke, spend your money to be successful. They spent the money, it didn't work, which is and we've said that before, haven't we? If everybody spent every penny they earned and more, you're still going to have 19 losers. You're still going to get 3 teams relegated. That's why I think it's working, because we're not seeing mass teams go out of business. I think if we just allowed everybody to spend, go on.
Were we seeing, before this came in, loads of teams go out of business?
We were starting to, but the problem, the different. Well, we obviously saw the situation with Rangers. We saw the situation with Portsmouth. The difference is, though, and this is where I think it's very significant. What we hadn't seen up until the point of FFP coming in, we'd had local multi-millionaires pumping money in, but the debts that they would create, when I say debts, we're talking about what they might borrow from a bank, or the debt they would create in terms of the salaries owed, were just about manageable by the incomes of the football clubs. What we saw Roman Abramovich do, Roman never cashed in on the debt, but the club owed Roman Abramovich in loans about 1.4 billion pound. The Premier League looked at this and said, hang on a minute, with more and more billionaires coming in, if we allow all these clubs to owe their owners billions of pounds in debt, and some of these owners then cash in on it and say, we want it back, and they're legally entitled to, we then could see multiple clubs. So they had to step in, because the amount of money being spent by these billionaire owners outweighed vastly how much money was coming into football from TV rights and sponsorships. So and that's why the new FFP rules are essentially going to state clubs can't spend more than 70% of their income on players and expenditure. That way, it doesn't matter how rich your owners are. It's about growing a sustainable model of income to make it work.
How you run rather than what you earn. Look, for me, I was on a podcast the other day where somebody was talking about, I can't remember whether it was a modelling, I can't remember which sport it was a modelling, but it was like that the owners, when they take over the club, they have to have some money put aside that sits almost with the FAs, if you would like, as an insurance to say.
I've said this before as well.
Do you know what I mean? So for example, I don't know, Terry Flewers is worth £5 billion. And wants to buy Tottenham Hotspur, right? Terry buys Tottenham Hotspur and comes in and starts chucking around the cash. And the FA or whoever step in and go, whoa, hang on. You can't spend all your money. What happens if you bugger off and the club are in so much debt that you've just left them in debt and they rot? So it's about having a pool of money there on the side to say, well, listen, when you leave the club and when you leave it in a good state, you'll have this money back, almost like an insurance. Now, listen, I've probably explained it really dumb there.
No, you've explained it perfectly. I think that works. My opinion is these billionaires will say no. I actually don't, because in my personal feeling and not experience, but looking at this, the Sheikh Mansours and the Roman Abramoviches are a very rare commodity, even within the billionaire range. So many multi-millionaire billionaire owners have gone into QPR, Leyton Orient, to name a few. Look at what happened at Blackburn with the Venkeys, and they're worth a lot of money. They went in, none of them did what Roman and the Sheikh did. So if you turn around to them and said, oh, you can spend 500 million, but you got another 500 million into a bond, most of them are going to turn around and say no. So maybe they could put it in as you can either do it or you don't do it, but they would still have to have a limit on how much you could lose then, because if they don't make the bond, but there's nothing stopping them from spending, it becomes very convoluted. It becomes very convoluted.
No, I get it. Look, I don't like any of this. I think it's all.
But then what you might have, let's just say you get 3 billionaire owners that are willing to do the bond and spend what they want. Then you have 3 owners that are spending £1 billion a year. I'm making the number up, and 17 clubs whose owners don't want to do it, who never spend anywhere near them. You essentially killed the league because those 3 teams will always be the 3 teams at the top. Now, I understand people will say, but the Arsenals and the Liverpools and the Man Utd and the Tottenhams are up at the top. But my challenge to that is this: Spurs and Liverpool and Man Utd and Arsenal, as an example, same as Real Madrid and Barcelona and Bayern Munich, they deserve to be where they are. Because it's decades and decades and decades of success and growth that has led to them being there. So as much as it annoys people, it's stemmed out of success as an example. Now, I'm not saying owners shouldn't be allowed to pump money in, and I think they should increase how much they're allowed to pump into their club. At the same time, I think, and I'm not saying you have said this, I've seen some fans say it, completely get rid of FFP. That's typically only said by fans who have these billionaire owners that are good. I think if we do that, it will damage football in an I'm
not saying that. I know you've not said I said that. For me, I think something needs to be in place. I don't know whether they've got it right. It's not for me to, as I said before, it's not my job. I'm not paid enough to make those decisions. It just all seems to be coming to a bit of a head right now with many clubs at the same time, which seems a bit unprecedented. Look, you've got the school of thought that, hang on, if I'm worth billions of pounds, I go into a business, what's stopping me put my own money in? Why shouldn't I be able to? But then the flip side is, as you said, what if I put all that money in? What if I do all this and then I borrow money against the club and then I leave it in debt? Then what's the long-term future?
But even in normal business, like if I am that man with £5 billion, there's only so much I'm allowed to pump into my industry and my business. There's competition laws that exist in life in general. And I know, listen, and look, Chelsea were a big team even before Roman came in. This was a European winning, major trophy winning team as well. You know, Chelsea didn't just become big because of Roman. He got them to another level, but they were already a big.
They were winning things. They were winning things before he turned up.
A big team. And look, Brighton are a great example here. You've got Girona, that are an even better example. These are 2 tiny clubs who, pound for pound, are punching well above their weight, and they're doing it. And when people say no one can ever grow with FFP, that's just not true, is it? Because those 2 teams right now are examples of teams that are growing and developing if you're run well. Equally, people say that FFP was brought in to stop the Man City's catching everybody else. Well, that hasn't happened either. And unless you're telling us that Man City have cheated, it doesn't stop billionaire owners owning clubs and growing it. So Newcastle not being hamstrung, it's just going to take them time. They've got to become sustainable to get to that level. That way, by the way, this is where Newcastle fans, and I think most get it, if you grow over the next 10 years to 700, 800, 900 million pound a year turnover, so you can spend like the biggest teams in the world, even if PIF sell, you stay at that size. I wouldn't want my club to have an owner that comes in and enables us to spend like Man Utd and spend like Liverpool for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and that's what we become used to. He passes away or sells the club, and then we're back competing with Leyton Orient because there's no money left. You have to do it in a way where beyond that owner, you can maintain those levels.
I agree. Let me ask you this. Let me just, devil's advocate, flipping it on its head.
Go on.
Are all of these rules making it less exciting or less of a dream for people to come in and buy football clubs?
You have to ask them. I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, you've got it's richer and richer people now that have to come in and do it. The local millionaire that used to buy football clubs 25 years ago doesn't have the money to do it anymore. So there's that argument. You don't very rarely now do you get. So Jim is from Manchester, I believe. He was local. He's worth. How many local people in Manchester that were born in Manchester are currently worth 30, 40 odd billion? Not very many, not many from London, whatever it may be. So that is, but I do think people want to buy the clubs. In terms of the excitement, though, I sort of look at it this way. I'm just kind of right now looking at the league table, and Villa are up there. It's the best we've seen Spurs look in many, many years. Arsenal have got back to the top. West Ham, for a club their size, 6 in the league. They won a European trophy last year. You've got Brighton that are up there at the moment. Newcastle have had a real drop off this year, but they're going to come again under this ownership. I just don't see how, you've got Man City, the best team in the world, where 15 years ago, if you'd have said that, everybody would have laughed at you. So I kind of look at this situation where Villa are back up by the top. Spurs, in fairness, in the FFP era, I know you haven't won a trophy, but barring a trophy, it's been the best Spurs for decades. So that's why when people say, like, no one can progress in this era, I can't buy it.
Listen, the thing for me with all of this, you got to remember, my club are nowhere near hitting FFP, right? I'm at the stage where I'm looking at the owners going, come on, you've got about 300 million left before we get anywhere near FFP. Put some money in. But look, it is what it is. Look, just one comment I've seen that I really, really liked that I thought was really good. You see Brie at 458. And I said, I remember a time when people didn't have to be a lawyer or an accountant to follow football. Do you know what? It bang on. It is everything we seem to talk about every week seems to be controversy, financial fair play, regulations. It just feels like, as football fans, we've gone so far away from the football that it's just mad. I agree. I agree with the statement.
But do you know why, though? Do you know why I think this has happened? I don't even think it's FFP. Like, rules and regulations help. But I think it's because if you go back to when fan content first started, it was far more basic than it is now. And that's because we all learn as we go along. Like, when I first started doing fan content, I didn't know that net spend wasn't real. It's only when I spoke to a financial expert, and now my mind has been changed, so I have to look at things differently. I didn't really know in the same detail we know now, because we asked the question, and fans have led this, in my opinion. I've been lucky enough to do it, and many others, where you sit down with and you start asking questions. Why would a club buy a player like this? How can we afford to do that? Oh, this is how it works. And once you learn more and you start asking more questions, you do go away from what you end up realizing is that the football that we love on the football pitch is only sometimes can only be produced if all these factors are in place. And when you know the factors that go into building a successful football club, when you're looking at the root cause problems, you go away from the football and you focus on those areas. Like 20 years ago, when you were at school, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when you were at school, you wouldn't have sat there and gone, you know what? I really hope we get a new sporting director this summer. What you would have said is, right, I hope we buy better players. Yes. And what we may not have noticed because nobody was talking about is, we bought much better this year. And what we may not have realized is that we changed the person who did that role at the club that summer. What we now know is that that's spoken about. So because we know the catalyst behind what we want, we focus more on the catalyst as opposed to that. But I get where Bree's coming from. I think it's just the more you delve into a subject, the more you learn, the more you understand the root cause, and the root cause problems at clubs, or the root cause to the success. You talk about other things. And of course,
it's the internet has made all this happen. The internet has made all this happen. You're bang on. When I was growing up, when we were talking about football, there was never ever talk of owners. There wasn't talk of who's the chief scout. There wasn't talk of medical teams, right? Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like, I see fans now going, we've got to change our medical team. We've always got players in. It wasn't a thing. I get it. It's moved and evolved with time, but it does feel very much now that everyone's got their own interpretation of, like if people have the City debate about like what should happen to Man City, everyone's putting their own spin on it without knowing exactly what they're going to be charged for. But everyone's got the idea of how they should be punished already without knowing the crime. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's what's happened to us. We've all turned into, just get them into the Conference League, into the National League. And you're like,
at the same time, though, what I will say is this: we won't remember this, but when we were kids, and the 30-odd-year-olds and the 40-year-olds and the 50-year-olds, not that we're that old, were in the pub talking about football. Maybe they were talking about these. I certainly know.
No, Terry,
you don't know. What do you mean no? Hang on, are you telling me that scandals in football were not being discussed when we were kids by adults?
Scandals, but this isn't a scandals happen every now and then. This is
every
week. This is every week.
What Man City are being accused of is a potential scandal. Come on.
Yeah. I'm not talking about Man City. We're talking about Newcastle. We're talking about Everton. We're talking about Chelsea. We're talking about Forest.
These things happen. I remember being
no one was doing this when we were growing up. No one.
Well, what about? But you don't know. Do you remember?
Of course you do.
hang on. Were you in the pub with a 30 or 40-year-old men talking about football? Were you there?
So hang on. So you've
answer my question.
No. Because as someone
there?
said in the chat, this is mental gymnastics that you're doing here. No, I wasn't. Yes, it is. But Terry, all the people you grew up talking about football with, when they're sitting around the house or you're with them wherever at the football, no one talked about this stuff.
We were kids.
No,
we were kids. No, hang on. No. You're wrong. You are wrong.
No,
you are wrong. You're wrong. And I'll tell you why you're wrong. I'll tell you why you're wrong. We used to sing a song at Old Trafford about Chelsea. And it was hollow, Chelsea success is effing hollow. We used to also sing a song about the KGB coming for Roman. We used to sit there. I was at games and we'd talk about other football clubs. And everybody believed at the time that Chelsea were breaking rules to spend how much money they were spending. Now, when we used to say it back then, no one said salty back then. Are you bitter or whatever? You're jealous, right? Now Chelsea are grassing themselves up for the very same things that we sat there talking about this whole time. My point is this. When there was controversy at Man United, for instance, with the Rock of Gibraltar, you heard about that?
No.
So there was a racehorse called the Rock of Gibraltar involving the owners of Manchester United and Sir Alex Ferguson. And problems.
Yeah.
That was a scandal and a controversy. I remember being at a game my dad took me to as a kid, and I remember people talking about it. And honestly, I was so young. I remember saying to my dad, and I knew where Gibraltar was. I was like, what's Gibraltar, as in the place, got to do with Man United? And my dad just laughed and he didn't even explain it to me. So that's why I've been around
every now and then, Terry. This isn't, we're doing it every day.
No, it is but that's because it's there. How do you know? My point is this. We don't know what grown-ups were talking about when it comes to football.
We don't. I speak with enough older people that I was growing up with at the time that still I talk to about football now. And they all say the same thing. Oh, football's changed. We didn't have this in my day. What's all this? We never had this. We just got on with it. It used to just be a game at the weekend. Now it's... Listen, I don't care what anyone says.
And you know what, bro? And you know what? This is why I know I'm right. And it's going to take another 20, 30 years to prove it. Because when they were younger... because when they were younger, the older generation used to say to them, it's not like in my day. We do it. We listen to music was better in my day. Summers were longer. It was always a white Christmas. We all do it. That's how I know.
Right now, bring up your calendar. Let's put a date in for the 24th of January, 2054, and we'll have this chat again, all right?
Right. I'm going to throw some scandals out here and see if we remember these being discussed from when we were younger. John Terry's affair with Wayne Bridges' wife.
What's that got to do with anything?
I'm talking scandals in football here.
No, that's not what. No, we're talking about different things. We're talking about different things.
We're not.
Yeah, we are.
Sav, do me a courtesy and let me read this list out. Go on. John Terry with the wife of Wayne Bridges. Do you remember it being a scandal or not?
Oh, God, that's not what I was referring to.
Let me do this list, please.
Yes, I remember it being a scandal. Okay. Yes.
Adrian Mutu drug scandal.
Yes.
As an example, do you remember the Colombian defender being executed in 1994 for missing a penalty? Yes. There we go. Ryan Giggs' affair.
Yes.
As an example, Brazilian. That's old one. Wayne Rooney's affair. There's a lot of affairs on here as an example. Stop. Do you remember? Hang on a minute. Do you remember the Frank Ribery and Benzema?
Yes.
Sex trafficking thing. That's a fair. Yes. Ashley Cole shooting a kid with a gun at work.
Yes.
Colo Touré testing positive for drugs.
The answer is going to be yes to all of these, by the way. Yes.
Yeah. The Italian betting scandal in the 90s.
Yes.
Maradona's drug addiction.
Yes.
Rio Ferdinand missing a drugs test.
Yes. It's got nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but yes.
Everything to do with what I'm talking about.
All right, we're talking about two different things.
No, we're not. If you let me indulge, as I said, let me indulge me instead of pushing away from the conversation and just get into it. The point I'm making is right now the focus is a lot about spending and FFP and cheating that because it's a real big thing in football. But scandal within the game has always existed. Of course, we weren't talking about this element of football 20 years ago because FFP didn't exist. But there's always been, from drugs tests to affairs to cheating to betting scandals to player and club disputes, scandals always existed. It's just at the moment the scandals around cheating are a little bit different because new elements have been added to the game. But in terms of conversation around scandal, especially for adults, because I think as a kid, you kind of ignored these things a little bit. You didn't speak about them in the same way. But adults have always discussed these situations for me.
I listen, I agree with you, but what you've just talked about there for however many minutes is not anything to do with what I was talking about.
What were you talking about then? How?
I was talking about, as football fans, never have. Listen, you've got into drug scandals and wives cheating with each other's wives and all that. I've not talked about any of that. I'm talking about, as fans growing up, hardly anyone was talking about get rid of this director of football, the scouting network. No one was talking about finances really at the club. Like a few things, yes, but the last 10 years has become...
But we got on to speaking about scandal. That's why I brought up scandal.
Yeah, but I meant scandal in terms of...
We've already discussed that element, though. Of course, we weren't talking about that area of the game because...
I don't know where we're going with this. Like, this is so far removed from what the point was that I don't understand.
I don't think it is. The point was, I want to go back to football before lawyers and accountants were involved. But the lawyers are only involved because of scandal per se, right? Lawyers are not involved to do with are not involved with transfers. But the point that I made is that the reason why we talk about these things at a wider level now is because our understanding of the game and the root causes have changed. So therefore, the conversation goes with it. If you know that a sporting director is hugely important, of paramount importance to your club progressing, of course you're going to bring that up in a conversation. Now, I don't think it's ruined because you're not just talking about what's going on the pitch, because why would you ignore the root causes? We brought up lawyers and scandals as part of that conversation. I disagree with you that we've always discussed these scandals and problems in football.
I haven't. The people that I've grown up with.
I said when adults did.
Never.
In the 70s. When Bobby Moore was arrested at a World Cup for thieving, the world spoke about it. Scandals and lawyers have always been discussed, Sav. You're wrong, my friend, on that. I truly believe you are.
Listen, I grew up huge footballing families, going to Spurs week in, week out. I grew up with families of coaches. I've worked for Premier League football clubs, sitting with people older than me from the age of when I started coaching. I don't remember this being anywhere near what we're doing today. I don't remember this whole thing was never about finances. It was never about... Football fans were talking about who's going to play at the weekend, who's playing at the weekend.
Yeah, no, so you're telling me as a Spurs fan, you never had discussions or never heard the adults talking about the Terry Venables scandal in the 90s?
Yeah, but as I'm saying, Terry, very rarely. This is my point. It happened, but so rarely. Nowadays, every day, everyone's talking about FFP. Everyone's talking about finances.
That's because everyone's online talking about it, so you're seeing it more. You weren't with
Terry,
football was once a week, so that's when you spoke about it.
Isn't that what I started? But isn't that what I said at the very beginning? That's what I said at the very beginning.
But the conversations have always been there. That the idea that these conversations have never existed, I think, is completely.
I didn't say never existed. It's not that it's never existed. It was just never to this level.
No, of course, social media means you see it more. But if you're like my dad and you're not on social media, it's the same for him as the 70s. My dad ain't on the internet. So my dad, he gets his news once a day at 6 o'clock. Nothing's changed for my dad. He doesn't watch any of this. He's not on social media, really. So he doesn't see it. We're just seeing it more because we're involved in it. It's the equivalent. It's the equivalent. If throughout the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you worked in the media industry around football, nothing's probably changed between then and now, other than social media. But you'd have heard about it and seen it all day, every day. You're working.
Let's agree. Let's agree to disagree on this, because when I grew up, as I said, I was working for Premier League football clubs, and this was hardly talked about ever. When all day, every day, people talk about football, these things weren't talked about the way they are now, because the rules weren't as bad. Because what we've tried to do to football now is make it too clinical. Everything is too clinical, from the fans to the owners to the rules. Everything is clinical. When football fans are talking about football now, everything is about stats, right? You look at the weekend. There are people watching games, right, talking about field tilt and stuff, field tilt, expected pressures, this, that, the other. I don't like. Listen, I just think for me, it's just changed too much.
When you say it's changed, I understand the change is hard, especially as you get older. I do get that. I feel it. You do know that a lot of these things haven't been invented by people on the internet. So, for instance, a lot of the stats that we...
Sorry, I'm not an idiot, mate. Of course I get it. Like,
please let me
I'm just
finish.
saying football's changed.
I'm not saying you're dumb. Or you're stupid. I'm not saying that. Please let me finish the sentence. It's the current top managers and top coaches in football that have helped to quantify these stats that we now don't like. Like, people don't like the idea of scan rate, how often someone scans. All scan rate is quantifying what we always used to call vision. Now what it does, it's because of the camera angles and computer. AI is also amazing. I've got a friend who's actually developing an AI program that can tell when something's offside, and he's shown me it. The accuracy is ridiculously good because it picks up on all sorts of things. But I understand it frustrates some people when you hear scan rate, but we always say this person's got good vision, that person's got good vision. And we use our eye test, and we use other statistics that you see that pass and you saw it. But if you're a coach and you want to actually assess in granular detail how good someone is at that incident, you've got to create a way to quantify it and then explain it. Now, I think online, a lot of people sometimes, I don't think they can explain these things in simple terms. If you can't explain it in a basic way, maybe that individual lacks the understanding around it. But I think it's important to be able to quantify what your eye test is telling you, because I think the eye test can get far more things wrong than it gets right at times because bias creeps in, and you've got to be able to prove these things. And I don't understand what all the stats mean. I'm quite intrigued to understand where it all comes from. But it's like, I always look at it. I remember when Maradona died, and I sat on a stream with Greers and Rants, and they both sort of sat there, and I get where they were coming from. They were like, what they loved about the Maradona era is nobody went on about his stats. They just knew how good a player he was. And I thought that's a really good point. But if you run through his numbers, his statistics were amazing. I guarantee you, we know his goals and assists were great. His creativity was great. I guarantee you his scan rate was absolutely brilliant, because it had to be to have the vision to do what it is that he did. And I think all we've now done is we've learned how to extrapolate the qualities that we respect and put a statistic on them. Now, where I agree with you, though, is that you can't just use a stat or some stats. You have to quantify that with real life examples, consistency, how do they handle it under pressure as an example, and stuff like that. So I think there's a combination of the two. But I like the idea that you're able to break, because also people make a lot of false claims using the eye test. So people will say things like,
it's using the words eye test. That's the thing. It's not an eye test.
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, but I'm just using the phrase that's now used. This is the irony in it. In another 10 years' time, 15 years' time, the youngsters that use the word like eye test, the new young people will invent another word. Yeah, and of course. The youngsters now will be frustrated. But essentially, it all, I never used to call it a low block. It used to be called sitting back, or solid bank of four.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah,
but it's always existed.
If a defense plays well and keeps a clean sheet, it's they played a low block. When they didn't, they just were tight at the back and organised. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. But the point is that nothing's really changed. It's just a new way of explaining it. So I don't necessarily think it's changed. I think the language has changed. I think the frequency we see it has changed, but that's only because we're working in it, or people are watching it. If you went back to your life in your normal job and you barely engaged on social media with football, I guarantee you that you wouldn't think it's that different. It's only because you're in it for the first time. And we never got to be in football like this before. So I get where you're coming from. I don't think it's changed as much as people make it out to be. I think the problem that you sometimes get with stats is that some people don't like it when a stat debunks their quote unquote eye test. So when somebody says Joe Bloggs has terrible decision making, but you're able to prove that compared against his peers, and statistically prove, and then maybe show clips to back it up, that he's not making any more poor decisions than the top 5 or 6 players in that position in the world, I think it triggers people, because suddenly because what people don't like, I'm not saying this is Yusuf, but some people don't like, because everybody in 2024, people think everyone can have an opinion that's right, and opinions can be wrong. And what facts do is they undo opinions, and people are very worried about that. So they say stat merchants don't want to know. Equally, people disregard eye test merchant, don't want to know. Where I think football's always been about the middle. An example I give is back to Maradona, to end what I'm saying. We knew Maradona was as good as he was. We knew R9 was as great as he was. Yes, they look brilliant, but their stats are great without even knowing, because that's why we thought they were hurt. If Maradona had all the skills but barely scored or assisted, he wouldn't be Maradona. He would have been some guy with good skills that we used to enjoy watching, but he wouldn't be the Maradona that we know and love. He was the Maradona we know and love because of the goals and the assists, the match-winning performances, the trophies he's won, coupled with his skill and his brilliance. And that, for me, is a combination of eye test and stats. And I think that's what the greatest players have in abundance. And I get where you're coming from. I just don't think it's just changed as much as we make out. I think it's a language.
We will agree to disagree massively on everything you just said there. We'll agree to disagree. Agree to disagree. I don't know. Oh, mate, listen, your chat has got to calm itself down. I'm not rage quitting. I'm not unhappy. I'm not miserable. You've got to calm down. I'm being called a virgin, an old man. I mean, Jesus Christ, we're talking football, for crying out loud.
This rookie here
people?
Says stats like field tilt, expected escapes, progressive passes are designed to make shit players look good. Hence why Spurs fans think Real is good.
Bang on.
You know what? Do you know what I think it really does? I understand.
Stats make bad players look good. You can find anything you want in a stat to give props, if that's the word you want to use, to give credence or credit to a player.
But you could also, again, but this is what I mean by, I think it's always been here, but we've got access now because of the internet to proof around these things. You could also say that stats are a way of debunking a claim that a player is completely crap and there's nothing good about him. Because that's also what you get from the eye test merchants. It's players trash, bad at everything. Well, he's really good at these 4 or 5 things. And that isn't a flex per se, but I'm always someone that doesn't like those sort of unequivocal conversations of this player's crap at everything that he does. Well, that isn't true. It doesn't mean you don't want to improve on him and moving forward. So I think it's one of those things there that it can be used in. Again, I've seen it used in this way, but I've also seen it used in the other way as well. But I get where you're coming from. I really, really do. Viewers, do us a big favor and hit the like and the share button. Friday night though, big game. You take on Manchester City. How you feeling about it, mate?
Yeah, look, I'm intrigued. I'm worried. Normally when we play Man City, we've got Sonny that is very good at getting in behind them and is ruthless when finishing. And I think that's the best way that you're going to beat Man City. Without him, I just worry whether we've got enough to be clinical enough. Look, we've had some good results against them down the years. But this is a different era now. This is a different era, different style of play where we're not going to sit back and try and hit them on the break. I feel that they're superior to us in every way. And we're going to have to play really, really well to beat them. We're going to have to play really, really well. Everyone's going to have to be on their game. I think it's going to be a really, really tough game. I think it's going to be a really tough game.
I think you're going to knock them out.
I hope so.
I think you're going to beat them. And that's not a dig at City, because City are just a ridiculously good team. And I hope you do, because I think as soon as City go out of the FA Cup, I just think it makes it a really open tournament for everybody. Does that make sense? Like, I'm desperate for you to do it more than anything. Excuse me, but no, I think you guys will do it. I read today that Maddison's back. Is that true?
Yeah, Maddison is in full training. He started full training last week. Apparently, he's been staying behind doing extra hours. I don't know if he's going to play. I think it's a big risk to start him in a game where you're going to be chasing a lot, pressing. I don't know. Look, I worry. City are good, right? City are very good, and we've got them in form. Yeah.
Oh, sorry,
I'm limiting my sentences, mate. I'm limiting my sentences to 3 or 4 word answers.
Why?
Mate, it's just listen, it's just getting just a tiny bit. It's just a little bit too much, man. Like, it's just a little bit too much.
Well, what have I done?
No, not you.
Oh,
not you.
I thought you were annoyed with me. I thought I'd done something wrong.
I just seen a lot of lies about myself in the chat. I just seen like everyone just needs to calm down a little bit. I'm just here giving up my time, right, to talk football. That's all it is. And I'm seeing a lot of stuff, like, for the same 4 or 5 people constantly just digging at me, and I don't need it, to be honest. I'm here giving up my time to provide a show about football. That's all it is. Like, just stop doing it. That's all it is. I'm not rage quitting. I'm not angry. It would just be nice to just be able to sit here and talk football without being abused for an hour and a half. If I'm brutally honest, it would just be really nice to stop being abused.
Oh, mate, listen, I get you. I'll say to the viewers, like, leave it out. It doesn't need to get abused.
Too much, man.
You know, calm it down a little bit. Do you know what I'm saying? It's people trolling, looking for a reaction. Just don't give them what they want. And I will say to them,
I get it, but it's not. Do you know what? When it's football, I'm cool with it. When it's football, I am so cool with it. Disagree with what I've got to say, but it's just too much. It's the same people. It's the same people, just lie after lie about me. Remember when Sava said this and Sava didn't say it? And Sava's a virgin and Sava's this, and they're talking about my wife, and it's like
the wife's not honestly,
man. Like it's just too.
I get lies. I get lies every day as well, and I do get where where you're coming from when you say that.
Sorry, just quickly as well. I tell you, the thing is, what I find funny, right, is I see people that say things like this guy needs thicker skin. Do you know what? Last week I was doing a stream and I got 3 WhatsApps from unknown numbers saying that they're going to come to my house and kill me and my wife because I'm a dirty effing yid. And I'm sitting there going, whoa, like I'm getting that. I get death threats sent to my house.
How'd they get your number?
Listen, bar not buy, right? Because listen, and then I get people all day long in the chat going, you're soft, do this, you're crying. It's like, what? Like, all I want to do is talk football. I just want to talk football. I come on, I give my time up to talk football with everyone. And it's just way too much. It's way too much. Like, all I want to do is talk football. I've seen in the last few months, I've seen 4 or 5 different YouTube channels shut down, turn their channels off because it's too much. And people just need to just relax. I'm just here. I'm calm. I'm talking football with you. But I just think, you know, I think everyone just needs to relax a little bit.
No, listen, I mean, sending you stuff like that.
It's too much. And I reckon the problem is, I think it's people like this. It's people like the Don Vitos and the silly Gillies in the chat and the Arsenal bloke. It's just way too much. Every stream, I have to sit there. I've got friends of mine that watch it saying, why do you keep going on to these shows? Like, all you're getting is abuse after abuse. Talk football. That's all you've got to do. All you've got to do is talk football. I'm not trying to control people. Talk football. Doesn't all have to be so rude and personal about my wife and my life, and like it's absolutely mad, right? Challenge my opinion, sure, but like sorry, mate, it's every day, all day. I'm getting this on whatever stream I go on. These people follow me around. It's just getting just a little bit too much, mate, and it's just getting a bit too much for me, right? Sorry, look, at the end of the day, I'm a human being, right? I'm a human being.
I get this.
I've got my own struggles in life that I'm dealing with. And then I come on here for a little bit of zen to speak football. And just the abuse is just absolutely mental. People go, no, don't worry about it. It's just mad. Sorry.
I get it.
We'll talk football, but just...
You haven't got to apologise, mate. What we'll bring the show to an end because obviously I don't like watching you sort of feel this way and go through this.
Mate, it's too much.
It's not what we're here to try and do. Look, I want to thank the majority of our viewers, everyone who's tuned in today. Sav, it's always a pleasure. I know we get into it, but I enjoy I
enjoy it.
The to and fro. Look, everyone who's tuned in, I appreciate it. Hit the like button if you can before you leave, and we'll see you all again very, very soon. Peace.